welcome to absolutely everyone who's here. So for the next hour or so, we're going to be talking about the community share offer for Armley Community Homes. Then we're going to go in for Leeds Community Homes, for those of us who are members of that. So the first thing we're going to do, though, is tell you about this share offer that is going to hopefully raise £500,000 and create 34 affordable, high-spec, high-eco homes for people in Armley who desperately need them. And what a fantastic prospect that is going to be, because it's a bit of wasteland at the moment, and as you will hear about it, it's a bit of land that other people haven't been able to build on for a variety of different reasons, not least the amount of slopage that there is on that particular piece of land. So it's an amazing prospect that 34 homes might be built there for people who really need them, assuming we can raise the money. So David is going to tell us a bit about the share offer and about the homes. Then we've got a video, our promo video. Then Jim is going to do more outlining the scheme as well, going to tell us about that. Then we've got a very personal perspective on video from an Armley resident, Armley activist, who's going to talk to us about the difference potentially that this scheme could make, because one of the things that Leeds Community Homes is really keen is that these homes, this scheme acts as a catalyst as well and a boost for Armley overall. And then we'll obviously be answering any questions that you've got about the investment, about how it works, about what the return will be, about the timescales, etc. And then we will head into the official AGM for Leeds Community Homes. So without any further ado, can I hand over to David Nugent, who's the chair of Leeds Community Homes, to tell us a bit more.
Okay. Thank you, Peg. That was kind of my brief, but also to cover Leeds Community Homes, so you get what you get. And first of all, I've got to say thank you to the people that helped put this on today. So thank you to Wrigley's, Ecology, Crowther Turnbull Booth, and Batman Lions, who sponsored the event today. So welcome everyone. And you join us at what a really exciting time, and it feels to me a real relief to be able to say that. Because about the last 3 years, every time I've sort of had to do some talk like this, it's been, we live in uncertain times. It's been uncertain times the last 3 years, and we still do. But that uncertainty sort of now feels a bit exciting. It feels like we're getting somewhere with stuff. And for Leeds Community Homes, well, we're just weeks away from finally taking delivery of our first homes in the Climate Innovation District. It's been a long time. I mean, community-led housing does take a long time, and I've just asked Chatco, it's taken years to get this off the ground. And it takes a long time when you don't have to contend with a pandemic. It takes a long time even if you're not affected by material shortages. So thank you, Brexit. Thank you, Putin. It takes a long time even when you're not dealing with massive hyperinflation at its highest level since the 1980s. Thank you, Liz. Local girl, gone good. And even when you're not trying to deal with people that are trying to gazump you at the last minute. But thankfully, we've managed to ride those storms, and you can now walk around lofts, and you don't even need a hard hat to do that. So it's exciting times, and it's exciting because we've seen community housing in Leeds move on quite a lot this year. The delivery of this scheme's been amazing, kind of thing. I mean, my first time walking around the inside of the flats there, it's stunning. It really is fantastic work on here. Well done, everybody that was involved in that. That's all I can say. But and we've seen great strides made by other groups that have been that have had bits and pieces of our support. Special shout out to Pride of Place and Rooted In and Your Space, who've all been making great strides towards achieving more community-led housing, I think. And it's exciting because, okay, then we've got a community share issue launching today as well. So a scheme that will deliver 34 affordable homes to the people of Armley, and a community share issue that, well, you know, thanks to the current economic climate, will deliver a 5% return each year, which is healthier than they've been for a few years. But we don't do it for the returns. We do it because we want to see more affordable community-led housing in Leeds. And we want to see sustainable housing here in Leeds. And we want to see safe and secure housing in the areas where people need it, like Armley. So listen in, buckle up, join us. We always need help on our sort of boards as well, Leeds Community Homes or People Powered Homes. You want to get more involved, we're always happy to get more people involved. Invest if you can. It's a cracking scheme. And we're only asking for £500,000, so easy. Ask the awkward questions to Jim, not me, and enjoy the evening. So, yeah, bye.
Brilliant, thank you. Thanks very much. So the best way, obviously, to talk about any scheme is pictures. And we've got a little video, haven't we? So Jim's the man in charge of the buttons. Oh, here we go. Let me move out of the way.
This is land where no one wants to build, but it's in an area where affordable, decent homes are desperately needed. This community share offer could change all that. So, welcome to Armley and the potential 34 new homes.
I'm Jim Reed. I'm the director of Leeds Community Homes. We are part of what we call a people-powered revolution. We're trying to put the power into local communities' hands to create the homes that they need and they want. There have been a lot of attempts to do something on this site. I was involved with the design competition on this site over 20 years ago, and nothing's happened with it since. Various people have tried to do things and haven't managed to make it happen, and we think we can make a difference.
You know, if at the moment what's just a little bit of a neglected grass banking will become 34 homes. You know what I mean? It's a lot of homes.
Plans for this site are to create 4 affordable homes that will be available to local people in housing need.
You're building maybe a group of flats within there, small 1 and 2 bedroom flats. With some houses on the end of it, a little bit of the common area for people to go into as well.
High sustainability, low energy, we'll have heat pumps, they'll have solar panels, and set standards as well, they're accessible.
Armley needs new homes. Leeds has got new homes, but Armley really needs some new quality, environmentally friendly homes that are part of the community, not just plonked in an area, which is the happens.
We're doing it on a community basis, so people are getting involved in the design of them.
Oh.
Didn't happen in rehearsal.
We're trying to get people involved in how it gets built and the future as well, how it gets run.
We don't just want to put up some houses and have people.
You might just have to stay there, Jim.
We'll move in. We want them involved right from the start, and then perhaps even the build of them. So there'll be opportunities for trainees to come in and work on the site with us.
Armley 100% needs homes. We've got families who are on the waiting list for council.
Picked it out of the offer due to landlord selling property, she says. In Bramley, it's all the opportunity we have. Well, in fact, I've grown up in Armley, and my kids go to school in Armley, and we travel down here every day, you know, to pick kids up and to drop them off at school. So people that's looking for houses and stuff, and it's sad, isn't it, to get an house down here.
Well, myself and my partner, we privately rent at the moment, so it's not ideal. I'm 58 years old and in private renting, so that says a lot about affordable housing, or rather the lack of it in Armley. It's obviously a perfect use of the site, and I just think it's a win-win really for Armley and local residents.
Lots of people would see new homes developing as being a real catalyst for change for the area.
We think that these homes are going to make a massive impact for Armley. We think that more money can get invested in the area because of it. It'll give people optimism, confidence about the area. We're investing in it. And it'll make great homes for 34 families who all come from this local area.
So we've got a 3-year project, 34 affordable rental homes. But to make that happen, we need this community share offer in place. So we're asking people to invest.
We're looking to raise £500,000 in community shares. And people can put in just £100 if they want, or they can put in up to £50,000.
The share offer is an opportunity for both people and the institutions to invest in the future of this scheme. The £500,000 that we're seeking to raise is absolutely vital to making this happen, because we can't actually make it work without it.
Because without that money, this can't happen. To be a picture.
It's so important, so valuable for our community. And if you can pledge any money towards it, from £100 to £50,000, then every single penny will just help towards developing our community.
I've been building these projects for more than 20 years, and where there is the local need and where the money is brought together, we can make it happen. As long as we can raise the cash that we need to do it, nothing else will stop us. I'm 100% certain that if we raise 500,000, we will make the scheme.
So that video and clips from it and all sorts will be popping up all over social media in coming weeks, and we need everybody to be sharing it as much as possible over the next few weeks to try and make sure that we can hit that £500,000 mark with people buying into this share offer. So Jim, you're going to talk us through an outline of the scheme. You're going to tell us a bit more. You're going to tell us how it all works and what it's going to deliver for the people of Armley.
I'll try. Okay. So, wow, that's an amazing video, wasn't it? Fantastic. Just seeing what it's going to mean for the people who are there, you can see some of the images of what it looks like. If we get the money, we've got to take it from here to building it. We've already got planning. We've got the site more or less set up with Leeds City Council. The agreement's just about there. We've shook hands on the amount. We just need to get the contract and the approval from the exec, and then that will go through, I'm hoping. We've had a lot of meetings about lots of detailed stuff around how we deal with the boundaries, how there's some shared garages with the flats that are there, and how we deal with that. So, there's lots of detail that's in there. We've got a great design team, and we've designed this scheme to a really, really detailed level. We haven't just got planning, we've gone to the next level. So we are literally ready to go out to the market to tender with the scheme that we're going to build. Now, often when we go to tender, we go with a little bit less, and we allow for a certain amount of interpretation, a certain amount of change. But with this one, we decided it was a really good idea to get as much of the design done as possible up front, so that we could get through that. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The design that we did, you've seen all the stuff. This goes back to around 2018. We had our first meetings on this scheme, talking to local people, local events, and every single meeting we had changed the designs we did. We started off with different designs. We had cars at the front. And people said, we don't want cars on the front of Mistress Lane. Let's shift them to the back. We took all that into account. We were originally going to do lots of flats on there. We're still doing lots of flats, but the local people told us there was a need for family housing as well. So that's actually gone into that scheme as well. So the design has been collaborative, whether it's kids at the local school, whether it's people we've met at the festival, whether it's people who've come to our events. So people have had a say in how the scheme's developed. It's really important that they're sustainable. We all know where we're going in terms of achieving sustainable development. 2030, anybody? Where's the government going? We need to make sure we're reducing the impact of fuel and cost of fuel. So we're going to try and make these as fuel efficient, as energy efficient as we possibly can. And that involves heat pumps, it involves solar panels, it involves really, really insulated, airtight homes built to a really high degree of standards. Access is really important. So
everybody can get in them. And again, that's been really important. It's been tricky sometimes making those designs so that we can get wheelchairs in them, but that's been a really important part of it. And then finally, we've spent lots and lots of time talking to people about how they can get involved in the green space. That area of grass has been there for about 20 years, empty, and it's badly used. It's in the dark. It's quite dangerous. Kids are told not to go there. It was always, once we realised that, we wanted to make that green space somewhere that people could use, somewhere that could be safe, somewhere that would be owned by the community. And so the design of that will continue on once we've got the residents in, and they will say exactly how it gets used. We've already developed some of those concepts quite a long way, but actually the residents who live there are going to decide exactly how that happens. So just a general layout of the scheme, you'll have picked up some of it from the pictures before, but you can see Armley Road across the top down there. You can see the two tower blocks, Westerly Rise and Westerly Croft, and our scheme is along this street frontage. So we've got flats, blocks A1 and A2. You can kind of see they're the ones over here. You can see from behind. It gives a really good look at what this looks like from Armley Road. The blue buildings are the flats. You've got 13 flats in each of those two blocks, and then the red building, you've got a couple of flats and a community space. Because if we like this, again, how's it going to get used? We've got no idea. The community is going to have to decide exactly how it gets used. Whether it's for kids play, whether it's for meals, whether it's just for meetings, it's down to them how we work it out. And then the far end, we've got the houses, which are set in three little blocks. They've got their own little bits of private garden, but then behind here, we've got all of this shared, different use garden space. And the parking at the rear, you can see behind the blue blocks, all that parking is hidden away from the street, so it's not dominating the street frontage at all, in a private, secure place. You can see that's kind of just a little bit of a zoom in on that. You see that's our community space there on that ground floor, underneath the flats like we've done here. So it's efficient and it's writing onto that green space. And again, you can see how that shared space of parking and community area can be kind of a nice, flexible, open space. So it should be a pleasant space to be able to sit out. And then finally, looking again from the rear, you can see how the green space works. Again, that's not specifically designed particularly in any detail there. It just gives you an idea of the amount of it that's there. We're trying to make it a usable, flexible space that people can use for all of their amenity. Our team's really important. We've had a team together for a long time. A few of them are here. Bam and Lines, they've been through right from the very start of the concept design. Tom and Guy have done all the detailed design with us. Landscape, I don't think Urban are here, but they've been really important with all of that community side of stuff. I should mention Wrigley's because there's a lot of legals that go into what we're doing. It's really important, not only in terms of buying the land, in terms of everything else that goes into the scheme agreements and all that side of things. So that team is in place. We'll be moving that through into the build phase. We'll be tendering as soon as we've got the finances sorted out. We'll be looking to go to the market. We'll work through a consortium. So we'll be trying to look at somebody who's the right size for us, who's interested in what we're trying to achieve, trying to get that kind of strength and wavelength together, so that we work together with them. Part of our design team will move over to the contract side at that point, but we'll be working as a joint team to deliver it. And this team will transfer all the way over and carry all the way through the scheme. So I'm really convinced we've got a great professional team that will help us deliver the scheme. A timeline. This is what we hope we can achieve. It's possibly optimistic, but if everything falls into place, we've got a share offer. Our Homes England bid is live at the moment. We're in the process of finalising our registered provider status. If all of that falls into place over the next few months, this share offer is open until November. What we hope is by December, we've got our financial picture completely fixed and we're ready to go. We're hoping we can finalise all the land contract stuff in that time as well, so that come the new year, we will be out for tender, we'll be working with partners, looking at costs, with a view to trying to get that start on site in the first half of next year. If we do that, that gives us a fighting chance to get these properties occupied by 2027, maybe early 2027, So certainly by the turn of that financial year, we will have residents in those properties, members of LCH residents in those properties. Now, there may be some hitches between here and there, can't lie, and there was some that we can maybe talk through, but so that might take us back a few months. We might be 3-6 months behind that in the end. None of that is critical, but obviously this is the kind of timeline we really want to hit. And the final thing is the money itself. There's a lot more info in our share offer document and in our business plan. They're all available on the share site. We've also got physical copies here. If you want to take away one of our share offer documents, these are beautiful documents, and I hope you will take them away. They've got lots of information about the scheme and about the finances in there, so please do come and grab one. So we're working on the basis of about a £6 million budget overall. So just over 5 million of that is the build cost. That's got a fair amount of contingency in there. We know inflation in build costs has gone up, but we're relatively confident we can get that built within that amount. We've got an allowance in for the land cost of 100,000, which is what we've agreed. Our fees and on costs is a budget that we're relatively comfortable that's going to be more or less where it is, 640,000. Then we've got some borrowing costs that will incur once we start borrowing from our friendly lender. John, wherever you are. Hopefully.
No pressure.
No pressure. So how do we meet that £6 million? That's the really important thing we've got to put together. Like any scheme, we've got to put together a package of funding to make all of that work. So number one is we can't make stuff like affordable housing work without grants. So we've had extensive conversation with Homes England. We've already had £385,000 worth of grants that's gone towards getting us to where we're at. That's already in. That's already there. That's already spent. That's in the ground, if you like. We're looking for another 3 million from Homes England. Their general, the pattern is very, very positive in terms of we're in the right area for that. Another slightly interesting thing, I'm going to come back to that one. The shares, we're looking at 500,000. We can make it work with 300,000. That means we need to borrow more. So we're looking at about £2 million finance package from Ecology. If we don't get as much as 500,000 in the share offer, that means we've got to borrow more. So we've got to have a conversation about how much we can push that borrowing. So 300,000 is about the limit of what we can reduce it down to. If we get less than that, we don't think we can make it work. We borrow too much. Ideally, we get even more from the share offer. And we're putting up a limit of 750,000 on it. That means we can reduce the amount we borrow. And that's great from our point of view because it means we're paying less interest. And it means that our scheme is paying itself back quicker. We can pay more interest to our shareholders quicker. So that's brilliant. If we get more money, that's fantastic. I do want to talk about contribution from the first share offer because that's quite important. It could be it can be possible to misunderstand how that works. So we went out for our first share offer back in 2016-17 to buy the CID flats. We got 360,000 towards buying that. And because of that, we were always going to be able to minimise the amount of borrowing on those flats. And that's great. So the less borrowing you can do, the better. The brilliant thing about CID is that we can afford to borrow against it. We're buying them for very small amounts of money compared to what they're worth, which means, we can be clever about that. We can leverage it. So rather than put all of what's left of our share money into buying CID, what we've decided to do is we hold back a little bit of it. We borrow a bit more against CID because we can afford to, because the rents work. We're buying them at a low enough rate that makes sense. And that means we can pump a little bit of that money that's set aside into this scheme. And we talked to our shareholders 5 years ago at our AGM about this when we knew CID was going to be late. And everybody said, yes, while we're waiting, let's put our money into other things. So that's what we decided to do as an organisation. I just want to make that really abundantly clear. We're not taking money off anybody. We're not taking returns off anybody else. Everybody it's just a big pot, essentially. And that just helps us make Mistress Lane work because it's in a low value area and it costs more money to do. I hope that makes sense. But if anybody wants to ask me about that, I'm delighted to talk about it. And that's really all there is to say from the point of delivery. I will also be happy to answer questions as we get to the next part of the presentation. If anybody's got any detail about it, but that's how we're going to deliver this scheme. In the next 2 years, we want 34 homes with our residents in there.
or CID is the Climate Innovation District, which is the big development on the edge of town, Cross Green, which is it still the largest carbon neutral housing development in Europe? Looking at Johnston, I don't know if you know what we. At one point, it was advertising that it was going to be. So, and if anybody wants more information about air lofts, that's what they're called now, isn't it? Air lofts. Yeah.
We'll talk a bit more about it in the AGM as well.
Oh, okay. Then just give a shout. So before we go to the questions, I think if I go like this, is this going to give us a little video?
Yeah, try it again.
There we go.
Hey, I'm Lou Cunningham. I'm a board member for Leeds Community Homes. I've lived in Armley for around 20 years and brought my son up there as a lone parent. I've previously been one of the Armley Ward councillors, as well as working a lot with the grassroots communities in Armley. And during that time, been involved with a lot of the local community activism. I know views in the area that are important to people through being integrated with the Armley community. The Armley community is my community, and there are lots of things that we've worked on together. So with my knowledge of the community, both as a previous ward councillor and being part of the community, I just know how important it is for Armley to have new homes. Lots of our families are very close knit and want to live near their parents, near their friends, near their brothers and sisters. And at the moment, it's just not possible. There are lots of waiting lists for social housing. People are having to move out of the area where they've already got their children settled in school, where their children have developed friendship groups. And the same with some of the older members of the community who want to stay within Armley to help with that intergenerational work and togetherness. In short, this share offer is really important to our Armley community. We were just so grateful for people to share widely amongst all your friends or your networks, anyone who you feel may support our mission to gain the funding that we need to take this project forward.
Great, thanks, Lou. We've come to the Q&A bit now. I'll get my pen so I can write down any questions. Right, so yeah, grab yourself a chair, go on, sit yourself down. So I'm sure there will be questions, but let me ask one to kick us off. Then explain to us exactly how this works on investment. We've heard 5% being mentioned. How exactly? If I gave you £1,000 tonight, yeah. If I gave you £1,000 tonight, how does this work?
Yeah, great. So obviously the money doesn't get transferred over straight away. It goes in. Well, it doesn't come to us straight away. We need to we need to get the minimum to start with before anything comes across. If we don't get 300,000, we don't get any. Okay, so it goes back. So it's held by a crowdfunder in their provider. It looks after it for us and only releases it at the right time. Now, if we do get that 300,000 and then we pass all the conditional elements we need, so we still need to get all the funding into place. So we need to confirm the Homes England funding. We need to get our bank loan signed off. We need the land bought. So those three things have got to happen pretty quickly after we've finished. And at that point, we can then call down the money from crowdfunder, and then we're in a position where we can proceed. So then that becomes essentially investment in these community homes. Everybody who's invested becomes a member, so you get to vote and tell us what to do and castigate us if we do anything wrong, or become part of our board. We then spend the money over the period of the build and the project. So what we're anticipating within the financial planning, and it's in there, it's all in the detail, is by 1st of April 2027, at the point at which we hope people are going to be in, we're going to be in a position to start crediting interest against people's shareholdings. So from that point, we're expecting that people's shareholdings will increase by 5% a year. You can also ask for less. You can if you're feeling rich and you don't need a return, you can elect to only have 3% or 0% if you want. But obviously, you're perfectly welcome to have. Now, your shareholding will increase each year, and then each year there's a certain percentage of our shareholding that we can afford to give back if people want it. So if people want to withdraw it, they can apply to the board to do so. And to start with, we've got an elevating rate of withdrawal that we can bear essentially. If everybody came to us in the middle of 2027 and said we want all our money back, we couldn't afford to pay anybody. So we've got a limit on how much we can repay, and that elevates as our business plan goes on, as we make more surplus. And that's all in the detail of the business plan.
Brilliant, thank you. Who'd like to ask some questions? Yeah, go ahead, Dennis.
Now, what's the tenure mix proposed?
Yeah, a good question actually. So when we first started on Mistress Lane, we'd imagined a balanced tenure with rental and shared ownership. Now, as the economic picture changed over the time that we've been looking at it, we recognised that shared ownership represented far too much of a risk to us financially. And so what we've done is we've moved it all over to rental. So all 34 properties will be social rented, and they'll go to people with housing need from the housing list, Leeds Housing List.
Please just shout your questions out.
Hi Jim, you said they're sustainable. What standards are they designed to?
Sure. So we're working to the AECB standard, which is the standard that we designed this scheme to. And AECB is if you like, it's a slightly watered down version of Passive House. Passive House is here. Zero carbon is up there. Passive House is a set of design principles and in fact standards with lots and lots of detailing, and involves an awful lot of certification. ACB standards follow the same principles, but they have a different method of how they are certified and how the work is detailed. So it's kind of an affordable step for us to be able to attain, but it's also very, very high standard compared to standard building regs.
I'm going to move over here because I'm just really YouTubing now.
Coming to the dark.
Coming to the dark. Who else is going to ask a question? Oh, there must be some more questions. Yeah.
Just going back to the rental point then. So you said it's not shared ownership, but what's the investment of those people, apart from the fact they live there? Do they kind of become in LCH as well?
Yeah, again, that's a really good question, because one of the things that we need to build is people's ownership of the scheme. So every single resident will become a member of the community homes to start with. One of the things that makes this different to a normal housing association scheme is that what we want to try and do is actually identify the residents really, really early on. So normally we would get nominations from the council, a few weeks before we finish, before they're ready to go in. Well, we've had long discussions with the city council about how we can work with them on this, and they think they can basically nominate people to us, maybe even right when we start building. So we can identify a core of people who will be involved and will, unless their situations change, will become residents. So we can work with them, we can get them involved in some of the decision making. We can even hopefully get, if our contractor works with us, we can get them involved with some of the buildings, some traineeships, that kind of thing. So they will have a very real role in actually realising how the scheme gets built. But you're absolutely right to ask that, because it's a really important thing for us as a community-led organisation to be community-led, and that's why this is really important.
Can I add something to that? Hi, I'm Rachel, I'm board member. It's beyond the build. Once people are in, the ongoing management, maintenance of the properties of the community is going to be down to the people who, to a large degree, to the people who are living there. So it's building that community long term.
Yeah, go.
Again, Jim. You're going out to tender with the scheme. It sounds, obviously the bottom line is important, but it sounds like there are other factors which are also important to do with how the contractor will work with the local community and deliver more than simply the bricks and mortar. How are you building that into that process?
Yes, I mean, it's a really good question. Again, it's because there is always a challenge when money is the bottom line, that overpowers everything. We've had experiences through the years where we've worked with people, made decisions solely on value, on cost, and I know that we've come to regret that decision. So what we've got to do is we've got to build in other outputs. Best value doesn't necessarily mean cheapest, so we've got to build in other outputs. And if we find that we find the right developer and it's going to cost more than we can afford, then we have to find ways of making that work. We either cut corners in other, cut our costs in other areas, value engineering and such like, or we find other ways to pay for that extra value because we know we need to get that right partner to make it work.
Yeah, David.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, David.
Do you have an ethnicity target and disability?
Again, that's put me on the spot, that one. We have a number of policies around equality, diversity, and inclusion. But we don't have quotas. So what we will seek to do is reflect the local community of Armley, and I certainly hope that and Armley is a diverse community. But we will have to develop our EDI quality policies specifically so that we meet that requirement. I don't know whether any of my other fellow board members would like to add anything to that.
It's also working with the council, isn't it? Because we'll be getting nominations from the council, and we can say we really want to reflect the local community and the diversity of it. But at the end of the day, the council have got to meet us on that one and nominate those people.
Yes, hi Jim. So how far are those discussions on with council? That's an interesting point, like how you do that, because you tend to find that these communities are sort of self-selecting in some ways because the expectations of what would be part of it, whereas if it's more of a nominations led, how do you splice that? It must be really interesting to try and balance that nominations with the strong basis of the community. I know you talked about that early stage, but it'd be interesting to know how the discussions are going with that and how you sort of, it's a tricky one.
It is, and there's because you've got to be very, very clear in how you make decisions and how because there's an element of discrimination in deciding who you are going to have within the scheme. So from our point of view, the fundamental thing is that people have to be in housing need, so they've got to be on the housing register to be able to apply. So then we then add some extra elements that are within our allocations policy, one of which is a preference for a local connection. So people who live or come from the area, who have family in the area, or are employed within the area. So that's an immediate kind of qualification. And our second qualification is a little bit more qualitative rather than quantitative. It's more around investment in the community and willingness to engage, willingness to become part of the community, willingness to play a part in it. And like I say, that's a very difficult thing to filter quantitatively, but we can do that through interview, you can do it through statements, and being part of the local community, obviously, council and stuff. But you're right, it's not the same as a Chaco, which has an element of self-selection, or a Lilac, or even a Your Space. It's not quite the same.
I think thinking about it, I think we probably need to be showing quite a bit of care at the point. If we're taking nominations well ahead of time, and you start getting a group that's going to work on the scheme, then that's the point, I think, at which you need to guard against that group becoming too cliquey in one way or another. You could end up with a group that becomes a bit self-selecting or excludes certain people. So I think we need to be very careful in our management of that group of 10s that come together there, so we don't end up with it being sort of too homogenous, I think.
And Jim, you're working on putting together a steering group, a local group. I think, we're out in the community. Lou really helps with that. We're out in the community making sure that people in the community who might be wanting to apply for these homes actually know about it and can get in there and can say, can tell their nominations officers that they want to be nominated and be part of the whole thing before they've even got a home. In that way, we just hope again that that's reflected in the local community. So we're doing that groundwork at this stage, isn't it?
That's right, Rachel. That steering group. The idea of the steering group is not to be the residents necessarily. It's a broader group of people, local stakeholders who can help guide the scheme going forward. Residents might be part of that, but they aren't. It's not targeted.
Can I add to that, Jim?
Yeah.
My name's Roisin. I work for the Leeds City Council, so I don't necessarily deal with the nominations myself, but I work with the team that do. And yes, generally, Leeds City Council have nominations agreement that providers sign up to and agree to, but we do have local letting policies within that as well. And those local letting policies are negotiable as well. So what we would do is we would work with Leeds Community Homes to identify whether that's a quota or whether it's that whoever is nominated kind of has to fulfil your own tenancy sort of obligations. So those nominations are negotiable and it's not set in stone, but there is obviously, from the council's point of view, we do try our best to make sure that those that are the most in need are housed adequately, and then from there we negotiate from there. So there is flex on that nomination process. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about how you're financing the communal space and whether that impacts dramatically on service charges or what. Both communal space, external and the building.
Yeah, and I mean that's always a tricky arrangement because we can't put grant and grant funding into the communal space unless it's specifically raised for it. So it's paid kind of out of the capital pots that we're putting together, so it's included within our cost, but the grant isn't directly allocated to it. So it does have a knock-on to the other things. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There will be service charge elements that will include both the internal and the external common spaces, which will be reflected in that. It's still at an early stage of working those figures out. If I'm absolutely honest.
Any more questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Can I ask about procurement parts? You mentioned that you've got a lot of design done up front. Is it going to be quite different from the usual design build process that doesn't always end very happily in terms of the quality of the products that's there, because it's not always clear what the quality is that's being asked for, or indeed how you might actually get there?
It will still be technically a design and build contract because that provides us with the best insulation to risk in terms of cost going up out of our control. But you're absolutely right. The key to design and build is how well specified you are. And there's, we always try and do it the best we can, and sometimes there are gaps. But we know with this one we've worked it. We really have worked through an awful lot of the gaps. We know we've designed everything far more than certainly more than we did with Lilac. We're a lot further with Lilac and Chaco. We're a lot further down the line than we were with both of those jobs, and so there is less room for, let's say, interpretation that a contractor could come along with. As I say, the difficulty is always the level of specification you have. So every contractor will see the full designs when they do look at pricing. So they will be pricing specifically the scheme that we've designed. Now, if they want to come to us and suggest different things, then that's always one of the benefits of design and build. And often there are ways of doing things to the same end but with a different way. But obviously, we've got to get the best balance of risk and quality and price, and that is always a little bit of a juggling act.
I think it's looks a fantastic development on a really difficult sloping site. But my question's really about the two tower blocks there that rather dominate that corner, and how it would be possible to create community with those established blocks. But I mean, it's really a question for the council: is will people have to come in new off the housing waiting list, or will there be transfers in, which might help with? Some people want to get out of tower blocks, especially if their family gets bigger. Will there be an opportunity to create community with the local housing?
Whether people can actually transfer across is probably above my pay grade, to be honest, on the flip regime.
I know, you're looking at me and I'm like, oh God. I'm going to say, generally, no, people don't necessarily transfer across unless they have housing needs. So, predominantly, again, for the reasons why we have nominations is because we have so many thousands of people waiting for properties and they don't have them. And if somebody is in those tower blocks, they do have somewhere. So transferring across, no, not necessarily. But I'm sure Jim would go on to say that you've done a lot of work with the community anyway. So in terms of community cohesion, I think that would that's already sort of started to be established. But obviously, if somebody was in that tower block, for instance, if it was a family that was in that tower block, they were over-occupied, and this suited them better than one of the family homes, they might have that need and they may well end up moving in, but I couldn't say that would be a definite. It would just depend on where they come in terms of the nominations. Yeah.
It might be an area where I think it will be where the landscaping around and involving local people in that landscaping and the ongoing, development of that and maintenance of that, for people living in those tower blocks overlooking it, and they would really hope that they would engage and be enabled to engage in what would be a real amenity, literally on their doorstep.
Definitely.
Any more questions? No. Well, I think you can take a sigh of relief there, Jim. No more questions.
Some really good questions.
There were.
Yeah, really good questions.
So we're going to head into the Leeds Community Home AGM in just a minute. I just want to say first, you'll see there's QR codes all the way around the room. So basically, this is